Marshall, and I'm here to give an artist talk on behalf of Alberta Printmakers and SNAP. I would like to acknowledge that I'm currently speaking to you from Treaty 6 territory, and I acknowledge and support all rights and heritages of the Indigenous people of Canada. Important. Hashtag land back. I'm an emerging artist here in Edmonton. Taking a bit of a hiatus this year. I don't know if you've seen the news, but it's not the most inspiring lately, but we continue on, and I'm making art in my apartment. An apartment, if you will. Anyway, you're probably wondering why I'm sitting on my kitchen floor, and that would be because this is where the magic happens in this 4x6 square of linoleum. Half my apartment is carpeted, and I would like my damage deposit back, so this is where I do art. I am originally from Fort McMurray. I got my art and design certificate from Keano College, and that's actually where I was introduced to printmaking. I hadn't actually heard of printmaking until my 20s. I always liked to draw as a kid, but I never really got into painting, especially like some of my friends really got into painting and I never could, and you know, I just figured, oh, you know, I just like to draw. And then when I got introduced to printmaking, there was something about it that just I quite enjoyed. I really, really loved it. We had this studio at Keano. It's small, but it's very well equipped, and it's very good atmosphere, if you will. So yeah, that's kind of where I got my start. I headed from there onto the U of A, where I got my Bachelor of Fine Arts. I've worked with SNAP on and off for, I would say, like 2 years now. 2 years. It's helped me develop a lot of my practice. I actually quite enjoy introducing print to other people and sort of facilitating artwork through that mode. So I thought today, after I kind of talked about my work for a little bit, I would do a little relief print, not demo, but demo, you know, just so maybe people can be inspired to do it in their own house, and they can see that you don't need, you know, a relief press or anything fancy. Like, you can just do it here on your floor or in a chair if you are so inclined. So throughout my BFA, a lot of my work has focused on how aspects of my identity interact with my environment and the anxieties I feel from that. Prairie Impressions, the name of this whole series, is makes me think of sort of more the earlier work that I used to do, which did involve a lot of prairie imagery. I was focused on kind of what that, like, the emptiness, the openness of the prairies, and like how that could like visually represent isolation and anxiety, really. I have one of them that I did. I still quite like it. I've always been fond of unconventional plate sizes, so this one's quite long. It's rather hard to frame, I unfortunately found out when I put this in an auction, but it did quite well. People quite liked it. Get a good look at it. I think this is one of my more successful pieces from that sort of age of exploration that I had. And you can see it's quite a, you know, disquieting image. The light from the door is a little too long. There's weird little details. Yeah, and so I made stuff like that for a while. And then I kind of started to shift the visual like aesthetics, I guess, of the work, even though I was still remaining within the concept basically. And I made a series, and it was basically like 36 monoprints, but not in like the way you would traditionally think of a monoprint. I more had like pieces of imagery that I would like put together as like puzzle pieces, and I created sort of like these tableaus from these like screen print pieces. And so I have a couple of them here, and yeah, they're the same. Houses with the lights on, ooh, creepy. And then I had also come across these images of deers who had, basically one had killed the other when they do their mating, like clashes, fights or whatever. And it's kind of grotesque and a little shocking, and I kind of liked pairing that sort of shocking imagery with this house with the lights on. And so yeah, and these were all on the same screen, and you can see they're kind of they have the same like puzzle pieces in them, and they're just arranged differently, and so you kind of get this sort of like changing scene of like the same situation almost. And like I said, there's 36 pieces, so every time I've shown this, it's actually been a different configuration each time, which kind of like subtly changes this narrative that you see throughout these images. And yeah, like that was very cathartic for me to do. A lot of my work conceptually is me kind of like reflecting upon myself. I'm very self-centered in my artwork actually, but who isn't? And I was kind of getting tired of like doing that imagery over and over again and exploring these same themes. It was a little stifling personally, so I kind of wanted to switch the tone of my work. Still exploring like the basic kind of current of anxiety, but maybe in a different way. And I made a series of books that I still quite like, and I don't know if you'll be able to see these very well, but maybe I'll do a close-up later. And so, so this is the first one I did, and it's like a cookbook zine of basically recipes on how to deal with homophobia, and it's quite fun. People quite liked it. I quite like it. And then my next one was a bigger scale of the same form, but like how to deal with anxiety, and I kind of went with like a children's book aesthetic with this one, and you know, it was fun, it was good. And it ended with this book of this very specific fear that I have of public washrooms. And I kind of went all out with this guy. It's my first binding, so ignore that, but I incorporated screen and etching and Shinkalei, even though it's not like a true Shinkalei because I couldn't get the paper very wet. But yeah, this one took me a very long time, which is another part of my process. Is I will sit and think about things for a very long time, and then all of a sudden I have bursts of creativity. This isn't coming out in that right. But yeah, I gotta put this back in. And so yeah, and yeah, that's kind of like where my work has kind of stayed, in this sort of like fun exploration of materials and using the materials to kind of further my narrative. And yeah, this was a fun one. This was a good one. Hello. I decided to give you guys a closer look because I realized you can't really tell from far away what these look like. So this was a zine I developed in a workshop. We had a bunch of magazines. We had 3 hours to make something, and you know, I kind of had this idea brewing in my head for a while, and I was like, you know, it'd be fun if I made all these recipes on how to deal with homophobia. And this was a lot of fun to do, and people responded pretty positively to it. This is a, you know, subject that is kind of close to my heart, and sometimes all you gotta do is laugh about it, because, you know, what are you gonna do? This is one sheet of paper and one pull, actually. It's, I'll show you actually what it looks like. This is what it looks like unfolded. You know, a little out of frame there, but you get the idea. This is a really easy form of book to make. You can do it at home. I've actually kind of decided I'll give you a quick tutorial on how to do it, because they're fun to do. They're fun to make, and you know, everyone kind of deserves a chance to make a book. Am I right? Or am I right? So, I'm going to start with a piece of paper. You can use any type of paper. This is just printer paper, so we're going to go with that. But you can do rice paper, rag, cardstock if you're so inclined. You're going to fold it horizontally here, and you're just going to make sure your corners line up. Press a firm finger along this fold. You can get a bone folder out if you're really worried about it, but sometimes your fingers or your hands just work the best. Then you're going to fold it this way, but what you're going to do is you're actually going to offset it a bit. And I don't know if you can see that, but you're going to offset this fold because it's going to give slack for the cover, basically. I'm just gonna show you. And see how it's not quite to the edge? That's important. You're gonna want to keep that. Alright, so now that you have it folded like this, you're gonna fold this lip to the spine. Line up your corners. I'm gonna do it to the other side. then what you're gonna do, you're gonna unfold it till it's in this half. And you see this the closed end versus the open end? You're gonna cut from the edge of the closed end to the middle. And you can use anything for this. I'm just gonna use scissors, but you can use an X-Acto knife if you wish. You're just gonna cut along your fold. Once you have your cut, you're gonna pull it out. I'm gonna fold it like that. And there is a way, so you see when I fold it like that, it gets all like wonky and weird. So when I fold it like that, it lies a lot flatter. Yeah. And you have a little book. There you go. A little extra thing for free. Yeah. And these are very easy to make. You can make a lot of these. It's super fun. This is the second one that I have. It's a bigger version, same technique, just a different aesthetic, different pull for sure. 2 pulls actually. For this one I wanted to kind of explore my social anxiety actually. Oh, there's a swear. Don't look at that. Shh. There's a time and place for everything. But yeah, and I kind of thought having a little whimsical storybook vibe would be a fun way to kind of communicate this idea that I have. And yeah, orange and blue, you know, palette of champions. Go Oilers. Just kidding. Just kidding. So this is the last one, and this is probably my most ambitious book to date in terms of just the sheer amount of things that are going on in it. And so as you can see, it's bound. I'll have to excuse that. I was inexperienced at the time, but this is a combination of copper plate etching and screen print, which are 2 very different processes, so it was fun to bring them together somehow. As you can see, I printed the etching onto a rice paper and then I shingled it to my rag. And I feel like these 2 elements together create this really interesting visual effect. And yeah, I'll just let you read. I really like bookmaking. I feel like it goes with print quite well. I like the tactileness of it. Enjoy the practicality of it. Oh, see, this spread was strangely the toughest one to do. Here we go. Yeah. And yeah, it's fun. It's good. True events, and that actually did happen. Very traumatizing, but yeah. Ta-da! Very good. I figured today, like I said, my work is very reactionary. It's also very topical. It tends to be things that I'm already like dealing with in my daily life, basically. And so there's a lot happening right now, and I find doing any work about it has been a little intimidating, a little daunting. And so I've been using my art more to relax and to escape, and maybe to think about funner topics. And so in the past I have experimented more with techniques that you would need a studio space to do, such as etching, screen, lithography. I don't really have access to any of those techniques here in my little linoleum square, so I have been mostly focusing on actually inkjet transfer and relief printing. And I haven't done relief printing since my first year at Keanu College. My instructor said that my carving was crude, and I really took that to heart because it was true. So I didn't really do it for a while, and but you know what? Practice makes perfect, and I feel like I've improved a little bit. So you be the judge today when we do this print. A little backstory to this print. I was walking my dog, and there was a man, and he was kicking his soccer ball down the street, and my dog, of course, just zeroed in on that and decided that she wanted to play soccer with him. And it was very cute, and he was very nice. But at the end of this little interaction that they had, where we were safely, you know, I have an extender leash, so we were like 10 feet away from each other. But at the end of this interaction, Charlie decided that she did not want to return the soccer ball. And despite coaxing from me and this very nice man, we couldn't get her to put it down. So he just let her have it, and I thought that was a really sweet gesture. Especially from a stranger. You know, I feel like in these times, it's always nice to have an interaction like that with someone you don't know. It kind of makes you feel a little better about humanity, gives you a little hope. And it's a little silly, I realize, but you know, I think it's cute, so that's what we're gonna do today. So, hello. I'm closer now, so you can hear me better. Also, I made coffee. I'm gonna get started with this Lino Cut Process. Stay hydrated. So I've already started. I've already cut one of the pieces of lino that I'm going to be using today, and it is my sweet child Charlie. And I've already pulled a test print of it, so you can kind of see the approach that I've taken. And so as you can see, I've carved out all the white and left sort of an outline of her. It's more of a stylized approach. You can definitely approach it with more realism, but honestly, it's a little silly, so I figured, you know, it would be okay if it wasn't like completely photorealistic or anything. I'm actually gonna be cutting her out, so I'm gonna show you later how I'm gonna do that, because you can just cut the lino with scissors, but I find that if you carve around it, you can cut through the lino a little better. So I'll show you that later though. This is just like speedball lino. It kind of is up to personal preference. Like there's definitely like lower quality linos and higher quality linos. I find speedball is a nice midpoint, especially if you don't want to like break the bank. All my supplies I've bought from a local art store. You know, support local. If you can't do that though, of course, that's, you know, your own business or whatever, but you know, I try to as local as possible. I just have a little speedball cutting tool. You know, I'm saving up from those nice Lino Cut tools from Lee Valley, so, but this will do in the meantime. These are okay if you're just kind of like casually into lino cutting. I could see if you were doing it for like a living, you'd want like a different shaped handle. Perhaps this is a little hard on my hand, but you know, it works perfectly well. I also have a little case of heads. For anyone who doesn't know how this works, is basically you unscrew, you loosen up the top, and then you can just insert a head into the top there. There's sort of two shapes when it comes to Lino Cut tools. There's U shape and V shape. And I'll show you what that means here in a minute. Let me just pull them out. So, V shape, U shape. And they both have different purposes. There's also like a little knife attachment. I don't use that a lot. I tend to just stick with these. U shapes are good for like carving out big white areas. So the dog's body is what I use to U shape, and then V shape is kind of where you start using it for like details and little fine lines. And so like her little fur marks and stuff, I use the V shape. I'm also going to be kind of approaching it two different ways. She's all carved out, but the ball is going to be, I carve the lines out in white and then leave the ball solid and as a block. And we're going to see what those two kind of approaches look like together. I think it's going to look cool. But anyway, so I'm probably gonna move you guys so you can see my little setup here a little better. Alright, hello. You are now closer to me, and hopefully you can see my whole little setup here a little better. I'm gonna show you the V's and the U's again, since they were out of focus, I realized, when I showed you before. But as you can see, this is a V, this is a U, and you can see how they are different shapes, which allow for different modes of carving. There's, you know, I typically will approach a lino cut by blocking out the shape, the general shapes first, and then going in with a Sharpie for like the fine details. Sharpie kind of tends to stay on there, so you'll see I'm gonna be handling the lino a lot, so I don't want it to smudge off. For the ball, I'm not gonna worry about tracing it in pencil. You see I've already traced it. I used this very expensive fine art circle drawing tool to trace it out. So, and yeah, some people will wash the surface of their lino with ink. I find with this stuff that you don't really have to do that because there's enough contrast between carved area and uncarved area. But yeah, so I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna start drawing a soccer ball, and that is a little difficult, but we're gonna, soccer balls are weird because they have pentagons and hexagons in them. And I say this as a person who painted a school gym once, and they wanted like soccer balls all over, and that turned out to be the most annoying part of the whole thing. So, but you know, we're gonna do our best here. My reasoning for keeping the soccer ball black with white lines is the ball that Charlie stole was quite old, so it didn't even have the colored patches anymore. It's just kind of like this gray soccer ball with little lines where you can see where, yeah. that looks soccer ball-ish enough. That's good. All right. And so I'm gonna insert the head into my Lino Cut tool. I'm gonna start with a V because I want to cut these like little fine lines here. So we're gonna, butterfingers. We're gonna insert it, screw it in, and there you go. There's your Lino Cut tool. And whenever you're carving, you're gonna wanna always carve away from you. You never wanna be carving towards yourself. That way leads to band-aids and mayhem. If you are ever carving and you're finding your lino is a little tough, it's a little hard to carve, like this stuff is a little stiff sometimes, you can put a pan in the oven and kind of heat up the pan and then put the lino on it for a couple minutes and then take it off and it'll be pliable. And that's sort of like an improvised hot plate. I don't know if you can hear, but my neighbors just started a very loud truck in the parking lot, but yeah, no, needs must. Filming at home, what a joy. And so we're gonna start slow, and we're gonna wanna make sure, just slow and shallow. When we're gonna be hand printing this, so we don't actually need to have our cuts terribly deep, which is nice because that tends to be a little safer. If you are sort of like ferociously gouging at your lino, you're more likely to, you know, kind of hurt yourself, or like shoot off your lino and just have a huge gouge straight through the middle, which is incredibly frustrating. And I'm sure I will do it once, at least once, so that's gonna be exciting for you once I do that. Yeah, slow and steady. There's no shame in turning your lino as much as you need to, especially like you want to maintain that sort of away from you momentum. Focusing on carving. Sorry, I don't want to be out of frame at all, but you're gonna have to bear with me here. Yeah. Yeah. And if you're thinking, hey, that soccer ball is a little wonky, I want you to pull out a piece of paper right now and freehand a soccer ball. And yeah, tell me how that goes. Just want to reiterate my point that these are hard to draw. Yeah, see that? Went a little farther than I meant to, but that's okay. And Bob Ross it, you know? Happy little accents. It's a good way to approach art, I think. Yeah. Lino is not too messy. You'll get like little lino kind of cuttings, but they're easy to sweep up. And, you know, if you're doing small pieces like I tend to do, it's not that big of a deal. You know what's interesting? That when lino was invented, it was considered really fancy, and so all the rich people would put linoleum in their houses because they thought it was developed during the industrial kind of age. So this was sort of like one of the first like materials that were developed. And so, yeah, they had linoleum on the Titanic. And and it was considered this like cutting edge material, very expensive. Whereas now, it's kind of cheap. Yeah. And so we've carved out all my soccer ball spaces. And so now we're gonna carve around. And this is gonna be kind of the hard part. But, you know, usually I would switch my head out, but this is a pretty small piece. So we're just gonna make this work as is. I'm trying to keep it in frame. Bear with me. And you know, just go slow. Don't try to do it all in one sort of to gouge. This is gonna be a pretty clean one, but I think you may have saw when I showed Charlie's, or the print of Charlie, there's kind of these little marks throughout her body. And when you print them, I'll point them out to you, but those are called chatter marks. And that comes from when you are cutting and you kind of have some places that you missed, at least. And they kind of lend a little character to the image for sure. I quite like them. Some of them are distracting, like chatter can tend to be, but they're always fun to have in your image. So yeah, that was an issue. So now we're gonna turn the lino so I can cut away from myself and get that corner, or that curve. There we go. Yeah. How satisfying. There we go. So I'm gonna be carving this ball out, so it's like a circular piece of lino, but I'm carving out the outline so there's less material to cut through and it's easier on my blade. So I just use a box cutter. It's very simple. Let's cut off a piece first. I'm just freehanding a lot of this stuff. Whenever you're cutting with a box cutter, make sure that your fingers are not in the path of the blade, which seems pretty obvious, but and you always never want to push really hard with a box cutter. You want to do several shallow cuts till you get to the material. And so now that I've carved into there, I can actually kind of use that as a guide to cut my lino out. And there we go. We have little soccer ball prints. Cool. And we're gonna do the same with Charlie, but I think I'm gonna skip ahead with this because this is gonna be a little more involved, but I will show you the finished piece once it is done. So hold on for that. Right, so I'm back. I've cut out our little Charlie plate. Quite pleased with it. Now we're gonna ink them up. I've been using Akua brand ink since I started printing at home. Pros and cons, like every ink. I personally like it because it's water soluble, so easy to clean up. You don't need solvents, which is nice because I have pets. Nope. We're not doing that. And I'm sure people with pets or kids, they would appreciate that as well. Yeah, if you do have like an oil-based ink, you can actually like wipe it up with a neutral oil and then some soap, but this is definitely a lot easier to clean up, especially if you get it on your hands. I'm sure anybody could tell you getting oil-based ink off your hands is like the worst. So I also like that. It's definitely easier on my hands, especially since I've been washing them so much lately. So we're gonna do a palette. Akua brand ink's really thin, so you don't need to warm it up at all, meaning you don't have to like move it around on the palette. You can just put a little stripe down, you know. That looks good. Maybe a little more. And then take your roller. Yeah. And if you can hear that, yeah, and it sounds like Velcro. That means you have a good relief palette. You kind of want your ink to be a little thicker on your relief plate, especially compared to intaglio etching, just to facilitate easier ink transfer onto your paper. And yeah, we're gonna want to hit this from a couple angles. You probably noticed that I put down newsprint, and that's always a good idea when you're inking something up, even if you have a little surface that you're working on. And I don't know if you can see this, but you see how the light is reflecting off that? You got a good velvety finish. That's nice. That's a well relief plate for sure. I'm gonna charge it up again. And, you know. They're very small plates, so it actually doesn't take much to get them all inked up. Get that nice Velcro sound. We're gonna move this over so we don't get any rogue ink on our print surface. Always good to have a cloth, just in case, on hand. All right. And we're gonna move these to the side. Now underneath here, I have set up a little registration kind of system. This is nice when you're printing small scale. I like printing on these like little gridded cutting mats because you can kind of orient yourself a little easier, especially if you're printing a lot. I've marked off where I want to put my plates on the paper. So we're just gonna place our plates. And today I'm going to be printing on Hanshi calligraphy paper. It's just simple pre-cut rice paper. I've liked it so far, it hasn't given me any trouble. And we're going to roll it up. With rice paper, you always want to print on the smooth side. If you print on the rough side, that's meant for shinkalei, so gluing your paper down to another piece of paper. And if you print on the rough side, it can like, your image can get a little fuzzy, or, you know, and then it's tough to glue it if you ever want to shin it down to anything. We're just gonna roll it out. Looks good. I have a little piece of tape that I'm gonna use to anchor my paper down. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it's sort of like a little extra precaution. I don't want to move anything to move while I'm hand printing. And very high-tech printing utensil here. And you're just gonna start small circles. Rice paper is nice in that it's really thin, so you can kind of see your progress as you're going. You wouldn't be able to see that necessarily with a rag paper, which isn't a problem, but you know, it's a little easier if you can see it. Yeah. You see she's coming up. It's always good to print a plate a couple times. You kind of get used to the sort of idiosyncrasy, idiosyncrasies of the plate, what each one needs, how to work with it. I've actually pulled a couple test prints off of this already, so I kind of know this area on her belly needs a little more attention, and her nose. And to watch out on this end over here, because the spoon can jump off and you're gonna move your paper. And so, there we go. Yeah, looks pretty good. What do you think? I'm saying go for it, you know? Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna carefully remove your anchor tape. Yeah. This happens with smaller plates sometimes. You just have to be patient, pull it off gently. Oh, hey, that looks really good. Yeah, here we go. And that is our relief portion of this print. I quite like it. You can kind of see those chatter marks I was talking about before. I think it definitely lends itself to the image. And yeah, it looks cute. All right, next is the inkjet transfer. So we have our print, and now we're gonna be doing our inkjet transfer. And so for those who don't know, inkjet transfer is the water-based alternative to acetone transfer. Acetone transfer, you just have laser jet printed image, you lay it face down on your sort of substrate, and then you pour acetone over it with and wipe it with a cloth or something, and then you put pressure and that transfers the image. Inkjets, the same technique, it's just you have sort of like water-based ink on waxed paper. This is just sort of like a label, like those sticker labels that you get. You can get them at like the dollar store if you're lucky, or like Staples. And you can also make your own. I've made my own. I've like glued wax paper, like baking paper, to regular printing paper, and that's worked. So, but yeah, it's kind of an easy, fun way to kind of get like text. That's kind of what I use it for sometimes, and that's what we're going to use today. We're going to have text. And so, very important, make sure your text is inverted so it'll print right side, so it's readable basically. And so I have a damp sponge. I've just soaked it in this water. I'm gonna move it. I just had it there so you knew what I was soaking it in. And we don't, so this paper is a little tricky with the toner. So we're just gonna very lightly dampen this paper, but I've done it on rag paper before and you can get, it's a little more forgiving in regards to how much moisture you can put on. This stuff tends to bleed with the toner, so we want to dampen it, but like not too much. And I'm gonna wipe on that water. And then, like that, looks good. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna place it face down in our dampened area. Once we have this face down, we do not want it to move, so I'm gonna place it very carefully. And then I'm going to tape it in place, so when I apply pressure to it, there's no sort of danger of it moving. And you can apply pressure. I have my roller. You can use like a spoon, anything to get even consistent pressure on it. And so I'm gonna take my rubber roller. We're just gonna apply pressure. And because it's taped in place, I can check. Pretty good to me. Lift it up. There we go. We have some text. And the reason behind this text, it's a little wet. Good thing this is water or rice paper. Can accept moisture to a certain degree. But yeah. I am quite pleased with this. I think it's very cute. My demo for relief printing in my apartment. You know, thanks for watching. Hopefully it was informative and interesting. And I quite enjoyed doing it. I hope you enjoyed it too. I quite like this image a lot. I'm probably gonna flatten it under some books just to get it a little less wrinkly, but all in all, I think it's quite cute. So anyway, here's the star of the show. Not quite sure what's going on, but she knows me. Do all sorts of things. A little bandana. And I would show you her soccer ball that she stole, but that would be the whole night and I need to go to bed at some point. So we're gonna say goodbye. Say bye. Bye-bye.